Coming up on Network Africa. President Donald Trump extends existing U.S. sanctions on Zimbabwe for another 12 months. Son of Liberia's former president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, is charged with economic sabotage in connection with unlawful printing of local currency worth millions of dollars. And Algerian students boycott classes to denounce President Abdulaziz Bouteflika's offer to not serve a full term if re-elected. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. We begin with Zimbabwe, where the United States has extended its sanctions by 12 months. President Donald Trump says the southern African nation poses an unusual and extraordinary threat to U.S. foreign policy. He blamed President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government for failing to implement the political and economic overhaul required to rebuild its reputation. The United States, Britain and the EU sanctions on Zimbabwe target individuals as well as banning trade in weapons and direct government assistance for non-humanitarian programs. The decision comes as a blow to the Zimbabwean administration, who is trying to dig its way out of an economic hole caused by years of reckless spending, corruption, policy uncertainty and sluggish exports. Now, according to U.S. officials, there are 141 bodies and individuals in Zimbabwe currently under U.S. sanctions, and U.S. nationals should not do business with them. Notable among the list includes President Emmerson Mnangagwa, former President Robert Mugabe, his wife Grace Mugabe, the Vice President Constantine Chiwenga, who is famous for ousting Robert Mugabe amongst many other people. President Mnangagwa has called for the sanctions to be lifted against the ZANU-PF ruling party, top military figures and some government-owned firms, which were imposed during Mugabe's rule over what the U.S. said were human rights violations and undermining of the democratic process. Let's bring in Zimbabwean journalist now, Nigel NYAMUTUMBU, to shed more light on this story. Hello, Nigel. It's good to see you.
Yes, thank you very much.
So let's begin here. What is the impact this one-year extension of sanction is going to have on Zimbabwe?
Well, the decision by President Donald Trump did not really come from many, particularly those that within the human and economic right, and those of us within the media, typically what the Congress deliberated post future elections in 2018 really indicate that these sanctions are going to be extended. They definitely insofar it's concerned because number one, Zimbabwe is currently in need of foreign direct investment, and sanctions that have been put in place make it difficult for Zimbabwe to do trade. American businesses. The United States is the world's biggest economy, and as such, without trade with them or with their firm and so forth, and without any real support from the Bretton Woods institutions, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, there is real little chance for the Zimbabwean economy to improve. But that decision did not surprise us because Zimbabwe is yet to meet terms and conditions.
Well, as you mentioned, Nigel, the country is already struggling with an economic crisis. This extension, one could say, of course, is a big blow to the administration. What can the government do, in your opinion, to get these sanctions lifted?
It's very clear. I think from the Zimbabwe Democracy and Recovery Act, the data that was put in place during George Bush's administration in the United States, it's clear that, number one, they need to see the government of Zimbabwe implementing political reform. And these political reforms include creating a conducive environment for the opposition to campaign freely, for human rights work to be conducted without fear of harassment, of arrest, and so forth. It's actually unfortunate that only last week the government arrested comedians. And then the government has arrested an opposition legislator. It has arrested a key human rights activist, and has been on that page since President Mnangagwa took place. And that is one of the conditions that the United States of America has put for the lifting of sanctions. In addition, the opening up the media environment, that is the laws that inhibit the practice of journalism, that is also the laws that also impact citizens' free expression, free assembly, and so forth. The sanctions also speak to some real issues pertaining to the democracy of the country, which is why the American government is saying it has to do with the foreign policy of them. And yes, there has been some changes, some slight improvements since President Mnangagwa has taken care of the administration, but they still fall far off what is required by the US to lift the sanctions. There is also the question of economic reforms that ought to take place, respect property rights, economic policies that are in tandem with international best practices. So all of that is still key. And President Mnangagwa really in his court to demonstrate that not only that sanctions must go, but for democracy, this country, he ought to implement these political and economic reforms.
Okay, Nigel, just quickly before I let you go, has there been any comments so far from these individuals and bodies, especially President Emmerson Mnangagwa, that are under sanctions?
Well, they could really see where this decision was going to go insofar as sanctions are concerned. So they've been pronouncing themselves on the matter. They have been, they've really just gone back to former President Mugabe's rhetoric that the United States are imperialist, they are anti-African, they are anti-Zimbabwean, they're enemies of the country, and they are really now just trying to canvass support regionally. They've been engaging Botswana. The Botswana government leadership from the president was in the country last week. President Ramaphosa will be in the country next week for them to try and bail out Zimbabwe. They've also reached out to China, who has been Zimbabwe's all-weather friend, as a response to the American government. But that would not necessarily still open up the much-needed foreign direct investment for Zimbabwe, and it is better that government deals with economic and political reforms more than just trying to ignore the United States, a key global player.
Well, Nigel, thank you for joining us on Network Africa and shedding some light on that story.
Thank you very much.
Moving on now, Algerian students are boycotting classes to denounce an offer by President Abdulaziz Bouteflika not to serve a full term if re-elected. Hundreds of protesters took part in small demonstrations across the North African country, continuing almost 2 weeks of marches and rallies against the 82-year-old leader's plan to seek a fifth term. Bouteflika's offer appeared aimed at undermining the youthful wave of opposition against his 20-year rule and shore up an establishment dominated by Asian revolutionary loyals of the 1954-62 independence war against France. Shops were open around the country, but students did not show up for classes at the Bab el-Zouar University, the biggest in the oil-producing North African country. Several other university campuses in the capital were also deserted. Now, police in Kenya have summoned Finance Minister Henry Rotich for questioning over a multi-million-dollar scandal involving payments for dam projects. Mr. Rotich is currently at the headquarters of the Directorate for Criminal Investigations in the capital, Nairobi. The DCI is investigating advance payments made to various firms for the construction of 2 dams valued at more than $600 million. In an earlier statement, Mr. Rotich denied there had been any wrongdoing, saying the payments had been made in strict accordance with the law. The son of Liberia's former president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, has been charged with economic sabotage in connection with the unlawful printing of local currency worth millions of dollars. Charles Sirleaf is suspected of pocketing some of the proceeds in 2016 to 2018 while he was a deputy governor of Liberia's central bank. 4 other former bank officials, 2 of whom are on the run, have also been charged. The accused have so far made no comments on the allegations. Liberia, one of the world's poorest nations, has been struggling with rampant corruption. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, president of the West African country from 2006 to 2018, was credited with bringing economic stability after years of conflict. Let's get more on this story from a Liberian journalist, Evelyn Sibe. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so what role could Charles Johnson Sirleaf have played in this missing money scandal?
The son of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Charles Sirleaf, then, at the time of his mother's administration, did serve as the deputy governor at the central bank. And all of the signings of the different documents and other interactions relating to the printing of this, billions was done with his consent, was done with his knowledge. So the legal team are saying that the fact that they have signed, or they signed almost all of those different transactions, the approval of the printing of the bank notes with the company, the Swedish company, were all done with their knowledge. So in that light, they are not excluded out of the whole as it relates to the process that led the illegal process, the illegitimacy of the process that led to the printing, and even the own accountability of the additional $2 billion. So that's how he's connected to this money issue.
Okay, well, Evelyn, if Mr. Sirleaf and these others charged, if they are found guilty, what punishments will they face?
I spoke with a legal counselor just a few minutes ago, and he has said to me that the crime is a first-degree felony. And according to the law, as a first-degree felony and economic sabotage, there are 2 things that will happen. They face years of jail or years in prison, or they restitute the amount. And if the amount cannot be restituted, it means that they will remain in prison according to him. And the crime is also bailable.
Okay, what has the reaction been, especially from former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf?
So far, former President Sirleaf has said nothing. She's still been quiet. Even the media here locally is still trying to see what she's going to say, because from the onset of this, issue about the missing billion, there were times that she became very angry about, the present government trying to implicate her government. And she even came down hard when she said that they're trying to, tarnish her reputation, her legacy that she has built over the years. And so she was really hard at that time. But since then, with the letters, we are still waiting to hear what she's going to say. But for now, it's been quiet.
Well, this scandal has cast a huge shadow over current President George Weah's first year in office. How is he handling the situation?
President Weah, in the first place, when this report got released, he was not in the country. He had traveled to Israel for an official visit. Upon arrival back to Liberia on Sunday, last week Sunday, he said that he's glad that the world can prove that his government has been vindicated, because it was alleged everywhere. There were speculations among ordinary citizens. There were speculations even among oppositions. The government of President Weah was also hit back hard with criticism from the opposition bloc, and even for ordinary people, that his government was in the know about this missing billions. But he said when he came that he's grateful that his government has been vindicated, and it is proving that his government is innocent and has no idea about this missing money. And one thing he said also is that his government hands is clean. Their hands are clean. He said their hands are clean.
Well, Evelyn, I'm sure we'll be speaking to you as this case progresses, but thank you for joining us on Network Africa today. Bye.
Thank you.
Still to come on the program. Libyan kite surfers skillfully used the wind to their advantage at a competition in Benghazi, hoping to represent in an African championship. Please stay with us.